Hello and welcome to 2024 New York Jets team preview. We got Aaron Rodgers coming back, hopefully playing more than 4 snaps this time around. Breece Hall, the reigning defending RB2 of fantasy football. Can he keep it going? Will Garrett Wilson finally receive the sort of quarterback play that will help him post legit wide receiver 1 numbers? All that and so much more. Give us 30 minutes of your time and we will get you caught up on all things New York Jets ahead of the 2024 season. I'm your host, Ian Hartz, and to accomplish this task, I am joined, as always, by Fantasy Life Director of Analytics, Dwain "The Rock" McFarland. And Dwain, we kind of mentioned it at the end of the Dolphins and Bills team previews, where this Jets team should be more of a problem than they have been, for the better part of the last decade, primarily because Aaron Rodgers is under center. So I know not exactly everyone's, cup of tea, not always going out there and exactly doing themselves many favors with all the interviews he seems to be doing. But I think we can all admit that Aaron Rodgers on the field is certainly a rather massive upgrade from the Zach Wilson experience that Jets fans have had to deal with over the past few years. The question, Dwain, is how confident are you that we get a fantasy relevant version of Rodgers? Because even before the Achilles tear, things weren't exactly going in a great direction going back to that 2022 season in Green Bay.
When I watch Rodgers, though, and I watched some last night, I went back and watched. Obviously, I didn't watch last season. You had like one drop back.
Yeah. And we're going to quick film study.
It was over. I did a lot of film work last night. I watched 100% of Aaron Rodgers' plays from last season, but I watched the season before. And man, like just watching him throw the ball in, like he still has all the zip. I feel like he can hit all the throws still. He can still hit you deep. Now, his mobility has obviously come down some, and that was a big part of his game in previous years. Producer Matt Swing is listening to this. He knows. He's a Bears fan. He saw it many, many times. Aaron Rodgers could just absolutely rip your heart out, buying time in the pocket, then scrambling out and making that big throw down the field. Does he still have all that? I think that's what's in question. Like, is that element of his game still there? But I think just operating purely from the pocket, obviously the bar's not very high. You mentioned Zach Wilson. That's as bad as it gets, folks. And we know it's going to be better than that. But will it be Aaron Rodgers that we were used to before the Achilles tear and even before that last year where he started to trend down? Going to be 40 years old this year, so I don't think it's easy to say a guy coming off an Achilles injury that's going to be 40, we should expect him to be at peak powers, if you will. But I do think he could still be a high-end quarterback too if things were to work out right. I think some of that comes down to the weapons. Can someone besides Garrett Wilson really step up? Mike Williams coming off of that injury. He's getting older. He'll be age 30 this season. We don't really have a defined playmaker in the passing game outside of that. We've got some potential things with Malachi Corley. Maybe he can do something. Aaron Rodgers' old favorite, Alan Lazard. Give me a break, guys. Come on, let's move on from Alan Lazard. You got Tyler Conklin. So I think it's going to require another one of those guys stepping up. But this is really good overall for Garrett Wilson. I think that's the biggest takeaway in my opinion.
You mentioned the supporting cast. I brought up kind of the rating system I put in. PFF rushing, receiving, pass, and run blocking grades, just everything except passing. Jets have finished 31st in back-to-back years, but they did again try to make some meaningful additions to the group. Mike Williams and Corley, you mentioned as the wide receivers, but even on the offensive front, man, using the top 10 pick on Fashanu, left tackle Tyron Smith, right tackle Morgan Moses, left guard John Simpson, all brought into town as well. So again, bar wasn't exactly high for this group. Can those additions take them from one of the worst supporting casts to something closer to average? With good health, we will see. But yeah, man, QB 20 for a guy that is still only 2 years removed from, or I guess it'd be 3 years now, from legit playing football as well as anyone out there, man. Not the worst late round guy to take a shot on. I mean, Aaron Rodgers right now going pick 160. One pick behind him is Deshaun Watson, the QB 20, QB 21s. I mean, Dwain, it seems like we're getting a little bit of a like the world hates these guys discount here.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we did this to Aaron Rodgers and we buried him, and I remember because I was one of the people that wrote about burying him that year. We live, we learn. After we did that, this dude turned around and just came back and shredded things as the QB3 in 2020 in points per game. And then he followed that up in 2021 with the QB6 fantasy performance. So scoring 24.5 fantasy points per game in 2020. I mean, and then he turns around with 21 in 2021 and in 2021. So yeah, it could easily turn back to that. And we've seen guys like Brady come out and do that at an older age. Again, I think you got to take a little bit off. You're not quite expecting that, But what if he got to 18 or 19? If he did that, like, he's a big time value where he's going right now in draft. So I'm willing to take him, especially on teams where I've gone after Garrett Wilson or I've invested in the Jets.
And yeah, 100%. If I had Garrett Wilson, I'm looking to stack Aaron Rodgers, probably as my QB2 later. But low key, man, like everyone other than Garrett and a running back that we're about to talk about is pretty damn affordable in Fantasyland. So maybe, you missed out on your Josh Allen Bills stack, but you still have some Bills players. Being able to go with Mike Williams, Corley, maybe Tyler Conklin with a late round Aaron Rodgers, there is a path to upside there that, again, I think is more than affordable at his current cost. But speaking of said running back, Breece Hall, now 1 full year removed from a knee injury that honestly, based on some of the runs he definitely made in week 1 against the Bills, I should say, last season, certainly didn't seem to hinder him as much as many thought. That said, overall performance on the year wasn't quite what we saw from those electric 7 or so games as a rookie. Yards per carry dropped from 5.8 to 4.5. Explosive run play rate, man, 19% to 9% last year. Now, still the RB6 in rushing yards over expected per carry. Again, those offensive line problems that impacted the passing game certainly didn't do Breece any favors as well. But overall, Dwain, my one concern here for Breece is that how reliant he was on some of the pass game volume last year. Only Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara have more PPR points per game from purely receiving production than Breece. Do you see that persisting without having someone like Zach Wilson or just a terrified Trevor Siemian under center in 2024?
I think so. I think the dude gets the targets in the passing game because he's a badass in the passing game. This is the guy that this is the closest comp we have to Christian McCaffrey. You mentioned, his target earning ability. It is as good as it can get. He had 15.8% target share last season. If you look at his targets per route run, 27%. Only Alvin Kamara last year was better than that at 32%. You guys know how good Alvin Kamara was in his prime. Well, he's still doing it last year. So when you look at Breece Hall, man, I love it. And if you look at his utilization, I know you talked about, well, maybe it wasn't quite elite. It was actually really the definition of elite once he got past, the limitations. Now, you mentioned it. The question is, can he become explosive like he was before in the run game? But as far as his utilization goes, once we got to week 6 and they kind of took the governor off as far as giving him playing time, man, 66% of the snaps. That's a top 6 running back based on the last 10 years of data. 66% of the rushing attempts. The average top 6 running back in fantasy land over the last 10 years has had 65%. So he eclipsed that. And then his route participation was 55%. Top 6 running backs have been at 56%. So he literally checked every check mark that we could hope for a top 6 finish. If the efficiency comes back and he's the explosive Breece Hall that we saw as a rookie to go along with this workload, Breece Hall is going to be the running back 1 in fantasy football this year. He's going to knock off CMC. It's all there for him. The question is, does that happen? And that's why you still take CMC over Breece, because we know that CMC is still shown to have that efficiency. Efficiency can be a little bit fluky year over year, but when we're tie breaking things, we've got 2 guys in great roles. You're going to lean to the one that has been a little more efficient in the offense that we trust more, in that CMC. But it would not surprise me at all if Breece Hall is the running back 1 this season.
In round 1, let's say CMC, CD, Tyreek, Chase, and the Sun God are off the board. Justin Jefferson, Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, how would you rank them?
Actually, I think if I was just purely doing it and not worried about I'm drafting 300 teams, so I want exposure to all these players.
Yeah.
If I was drafting one team tomorrow, I would go CeeDee Lamb, then I would go CMC, then I would go Tyreek Hill, and then I would go Breece Hall and Bijan, and then I would go back to Jamar Chase.
Ooh.
And then I would go Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Why Breece over Bijan?
Just because overall his target earning ability that he has shown has been at the higher end. Not to say that Bijan wasn't good. He was good, but not elite. So it won't surprise me if Bijan's the running back 1 either. I like them both. I have them back to back. But if I had to pick, I think that Breece has actually shown us more of that high-end receiving ability to go along with the rushing ability.
What would help Breece's cause too, Dwain, is getting more than 1 carry from inside the 5-yard line the entire year. The Jets were the only team in the NFL that didn't have a single rush attempt from a running back from the 1-yard line last year. Just truly a piss poor offensive environment. And Breece somehow still worked his way up to an RB2 overall finish by the end of it. So a little bit lower, I think, in terms of per game, but you guys know where I'm getting at. Hilarious note, though, as I was kind of going through this, Dwain, do you realize that after the Jets had already been eliminated from the playoffs last year, that they gave Breece 36 and 39 29 combined carries and targets in 2 of these final 3 games. They like week 18, meaningless game against the Patriots, and they were running this dude into the ground, and then they were trying to get him over 1,000 rushing yards, even though he was well over that in total yards. And then they even like miscalculated it at the end of the game, so he didn't even get there. Just again, such a Jets thing to do there.
Sorry, Elliot. It's just Jets.
Yeah. Hey, but for fantasy purposes, thank you for feeding him the rock and probably winning many of you, some nice playoff games there down the stretch. So that's Breece Hall, but let's face it, the number one, I shouldn't say number one. The 1A, 1B playmakers in this offense, it is Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. We all, certainly trusted Garrett last year. We got that one preseason performance against the Giants where him and Rodgers certainly looked in tune together. And Garrett over the years has again flashed all sorts of wide receiver 1 ability, even if we haven't quite gotten the corresponding production. I still believe Dwain. Last year, he was 5th in ESPN's open score despite Zach Wilson doing Zach Wilson things. I know Matt Harmon from Yahoo Sports has done a lot of good work with reception perception, showing that Garrett Wilson is getting open like a wide receiver 1 should. And my God, man, only Rodgers' old friend Davante Adams had more actual targets last year that were deemed uncatchable by PFF than Garrett Wilson. So last time we saw Rodgers for a full season with a legit number 1 wide receiver, he was feeding Davante 160 plus targets. That's what Garrett got last year. We just didn't have very catchable targets. Are you comfortable drafting Garrett as a legit top 10 receiver, and how high are you willing to go?
Yeah, I mean, he's got top 5 talent for sure. I have no doubt about it, man. Like if Aaron Rodgers is 80% of Aaron Rodgers 3 years ago, Garrett Wilson can challenge to be the wide receiver 1 in all of fantasy. Like he's that good. He's up there with CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase. That group of names, he belongs with it. Amon-Ra St. Brown, let's not disrespect the sun god, but he's right there. And, drafters are treating him as such, man. They're taking him at the end of round 1. Drafters are so much sharper than when I first started playing fantasy football. This is a name that I would have been drafting on every team, getting them super late. And it's amazing. Like people have gotten so much better and they know, no, this guy's a late first round pick and you should be treating him as such. Look, I have a cheat code for you on wide receivers. If you really want to know who's good, like I love all the underlying data points, but I don't even need to see an open score. I don't need to see a bunch of charting. Did the quarterback throw on the ball? Most quarterbacks, even bad ones named Zach Wilson, though they may not be good, they still know who the best player on their team is. And they still, 99.9% of those guys, even the bad ones like Zach Wilson, know more than we'll ever know about football. And guess what he did? He tried to throw it to Garrett Wilson. He just wasn't good at throwing it to Garrett Wilson. So Garrett Wilson is an absolute target alpha. We know he can make the plays after the catch. He's got a good yak ability. So with Aaron Rodgers, man, the sky is absolutely the limit. If you get a chance where somehow Garrett Wilson falls into round 2, which I think you're going to see more in home drafts, you're not going to get that kind of discount, in a best ball draft, over on DraftKings. He's going in round 1, but in your home league draft, you're going to have a chance to get him in round 2. And I think he's going to be a smash pick.
Pretty consensus top 5 wide receivers around the industry: CeeDee, Tyreek, Chase, Jefferson, and then our one true sun god. After that is where things get tighter. I'm giving AJ Brown the benefit of the doubt. Again, he is the true one in Philly. Devonta Smith is awesome, but we've just seen the target disparity between the two. After that, for me, Dwain, I think it's Garrett Wilson. I think Puka Nacua has more target competition in terms of what he's dealing with with Cooper Kupp.
Well, so does AJ Brown. Like, I think that's where you could make the argument that Garrett Wilson should go before AJ Brown or Puka. But you have the question, is Aaron Rodgers still good? Right. So it's all these little things that you kind of piece together.
I'm feeling better about Hurts than I am Rodgers, to your point about the Achilles thing. And just, we've seen AJB with a healthy Devonta Smith, and it's been AJB leading the way. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua were within 1 target of each other when they were both healthy last season. I'm with you. I think it's Garrett versus AJB. I would take Garrett ahead of Puka, though.
Yeah, and I don't blame anybody. Those 3 are all great picks for where you're getting to take them right now in your drafts at the end of round 1. Might be more like round 2 picks, like we said, in your home leagues.
Draft Garrett Wilson, feel good about it. That's the moral of the story here. Let's talk about, again, some of the offensive philosophy going on, though. And Nathaniel Hackett is back again to more or less run the Aaron Rodgers offense. What did you see from this group last year, Dwain? I know we're not talking about maybe necessarily the best schemed offense in the NFL, but kudos to Hackett for doing what fantasy managers wanted. I mean, Garrett Wilson, 168 targets last year, and you already spoke about Breece Hall's, again, pretty fantastic utilization, especially once he was fully healthy.
Well, first, I mean, I think we have to be honest. Like, how much does Hackett have to do with Garrett Wilson? Probably not much. I mean, good target earners go out there and their quarterbacks know they're the best player on the field and they just try to get them the ball, regardless of what play is getting called. Yeah, you can scheme up looks, behind the line of scrimmage. There's some things you can do. I think you can prop up a wide receiver to about a 14 to 16% target share. Beyond that, like, you just got to be good to keep going past that based on the research I've done. And obviously, Garrett Wilson blew that out of the freaking water. But outside of that, Nathaniel Hackett was terrible. Play action rate, 7%. Shift in motion, 25%. The league average for play action, which is a cheat code, 15%. The average play action target in PPR leagues over the last 4 years is worth 20% more than a non-play action target.
Ooh.
What does that tell you? More play action targets. Like, come on, people. 25%, for shift in motion. I haven't done the research on that yet to see exactly what those are, because not all shift in motion is created equal. Yeah. Like, are they still running? Are they at full speed? So there's some nuance to that one that I'm trying to peel through. But essentially, let's just put it this way. Nathaniel Hackett did nothing to help Zach Wilson. He did nothing. Absolutely nothing. He just made the dude drop back and try to just, hey, throw it to Garrett Wilson. Okay, Garrett Wilson's open. I'm going to try, coach. So I'm not a Nathaniel Hackett fan. Never really have been. I think he just lives on the coattails of Aaron Rodgers. And we did get the news coming out of minicamp that Todd Downing actually took over the play calling duties for the 2-minute offense. So you've heard of 2-minute backs, Ian? We now maybe have a 2-minute play caller. And then I started looking up Todd Downing's pass. I was like, oh, well, he's basically Nathaniel Hackett. Like, I didn't have a lot to hang my hat on or get excited. So, like, that was really short-lived. But I'll be honest, I would take anything other than Nathaniel Hackett calling plays for this team.
I will say, people attacking like Robert Saleh sitting in on offensive meetings, like, give me a break, guys. We've all watched Belichick and Brady, gawking over Ed Reed film and been like, oh, look how great this is, a defensive-minded head coach helping show his quarterback what defenses are thinking. Like, okay, it's the Jets. I know it's low-hanging fruit, but to me, that wasn't something that deserved any amount of criticism there. So, again, we'll see what the Hackett/Rodgers offense looks like. Hopefully, though, the improvement of the Jims and Joes, particularly on the offensive line, make life easier for everyone involved. So that takes us to the win total. Dwain resting at 9.5, minus 140 lean on the over. They are plus 240 to go ahead and win the AFC East. That is third behind the Bills and the Dolphins. So it's scary, but I'm taking over 9.5 wins here. Again, I don't think Rodgers is going to all of a sudden make this offense top 5, but they don't need to be when they do have a legit top 5 defense at their disposal. The offense is condensed enough for Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall to do their thing in fantasy land, and honestly, that might just be enough. So looking at this Jets team, man, like, hey, we just saw them last freaking season be dealt the worst hand possible, and what they finished with? 7 wins. So we just need to get 3 more of those going from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers. Maybe the defense can't keep on keeping on, but I think they have the personnel to do so. Again, good improvements. Unlike the Dolphins and Bills, where I just can't look at the roster and say this is a noticeably better group than last year, I think you can with the Jets. Feel free to show this video to me 6 months from now when the Jets are 3-13, limping into January. But I'm feeling good for right now. Give me over 9.5 wins.
Well, hey, it's minus 140 to get the over, right? And you're getting plus money to take the under. So, I mean, the market's telling us really the same thing. I think you're on the right path here, and I think it does come back to the defense. And even if Aaron Rodgers is not 100% of what he used to be, to your point, like, he's still such an upgrade from Zach Wilson. Like, he just has to stay healthy. That's all that has to happen for Aaron Rodgers for us to feel good that the Jets could come out here and win 10 games. So if Aaron Rodgers is upright, I think that happens.
Rodgers trying to win, Jets trying to win. I'm trying to win over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Now, just had a banger of a UFC 300 and 303 card, I should say. So got a little bit longer to wait before our next event, but got a fight night coming up 2 weekends from now, and you might as well get ready to go ahead and bet on that. Maybe get some baseball parlays going along the way. I'll just say, guys, as a Cleveland Guardians fan who don't look now, but actually had the best record in all of baseball here recently, nothing gets me through these summer nights more than just a little bit of a 3-team MLB parlay. Maybe bet some overs on strikeouts. Life is too short to bet the under after all. But again, good things happening, and why not go ahead and do it over at DraftKings Sportsbook? New customers can bet just $5 on anything and receive $150 in bonus bets instantly. All you got to do is use our promo code FantasyLife to get that great deal. Again, bet $5 on anything, get $150 back in bonus bets instantly. Just use that promo code FantasyLife. And hey, if sports betting is not yet available in your state, not to worry. We have daily fantasy going on and plenty of best ball contests to help get you throughout the summer. Personally, I'm a big fan of DraftKings best ball, actually offering, a wide ranging of prices. I've almost maxed out my $3 entry, so I'm going to have to start manning up here a little bit and getting in the bigger dollar streets, but that's fine. Probably about that time of the summer to do so. And by the way, catch Dwain and myself every Friday for the foreseeable future going through a DraftKings best ball draft. So again, promo code FantasyLife, and remember, the crown is yours. All right, Dwain, two more position groups to really talk about in this offense. The first is a pretty, key position battle. We do have the wide receiver 2 spot being decided between Mike Williams and probably Malachi Corley. Now, we have gotten some word, from camp that we could actually see a bit more of a competition for the 3rd round rookie to start off. We did actually have, Xavier Gibson and maybe your favorite player in the league, Allen Lazard, having a say about that. But I would assume sooner rather than later will be Corley out there. Also, hopefully sooner rather than later, Mike Williams, but lest we forget, he is 30 in October and coming off that torn ACL. So we've gotten some expectations, throughout the offseason that he should be ready for week 1. But as we've seen kind of with the Jonathan Brooks saga, a lot easier, for a national reporter to say that in April than for a head coach to say that here in June and July. So overall thoughts on this, wide receiver 2 spot, Dwain, if you think it's going to overly matter in Fantasyland.
I think Mike Williams ultimately becomes the wide receiver 2 on the team, but he has a lot of red flags. He is getting older. He's a guy coming off of an injury. So that's not typically a good pairing for wide receivers where talent matters so much. If you look at Corley, though, the challenge here is he was really a gimmick player in college. And if you look at all the quotes we've seen through the OTAs and through mini camps, it's about, yeah, we like him, but we got to figure out how to get him on the field. We got to figure out how to get him touches. That's not something you ever want to hear. We got to figure out how to get him touches. So I think they envision using him kind of like a Deebo Samuel and getting him some of those quick throws in the screen game. But the difference is Deebo, even in college, showed an ability to come out and beat man coverage. He showed an ability to get those intermediate looks down the field. Malachi Corley never did that. Now, he's electric with the ball in his hands, even once you adjust for his average depth of target, and I mean, this guy, he had a ton of targets come behind the line of scrimmage. 37% of his targets in college came behind the line of scrimmage. If you look at him, his 2.4 yards over expectation in yards after the catch per reception. So he is a playmaker. The question is, in year 1, is he really likely to turn into a guy that's going to be able to get on the field a lot? My guess is probably no. So look at this offense. They're going to run the ball plenty. They're going to come out in their big formation. So I don't know how much 3 wide receiver utilization we're going to see, which I think will be key for Corley. The other real concern here is historically guys with his profile coming out of college. So low ADOT, don't line up wide very much, and don't have a high pedigree as far as recruiting goes. If you look at the closest comps here, we've got Amari Rodgers, we've got Paris Campbell. Now, Rondell Moore was a little bit of a bigger recruit, so was Kadarius Toney, but those are the closest comps that we have. And those guys, none of those have really been able to carve out full-time roles in offenses and take that next step. So that's my biggest concern with Corley. We already talked about Nathaniel Hackett. Like, really, we're depending on this guy to be the innovative mind to figure out how to get the ball to Corley and get him the right mix of snaps being on the field versus off the field. It feels like a lot. I've been mixing him in, but he's one of my least drafted rookie wide receivers because I just don't trust the staff to figure this out.
Yeah, I'm only taking him if I've already done the Garrett and Rodgers stack and just need a later round wide receiver there. I'm with you. Plan on ranking, Mike Williams ahead of Corley pretty much each and every week. Things could change once those two are, certainly out there in 3 wide receiver sets. So fun stat from Fantasy Points, Scott Barrett. 51.4% of Corley's career catches came via screens. That's the highest of any day 1 or day 2 wide receiver in the PFF college era. So yeah, man. Hey, we'll take the gadget, the gimmicky touches 8 days of the week, as long as they don't prevent the player from having a full-time role. And at this point, man, just some of the words out of Jets camp, sounds like Xavier Gibson might not be exactly giving up that spot in a hurry. So would it honestly surprise you, Dwain, if we're going through September and Corley's sitting at like a 40% route rate, getting 3 or 4 design touches a game?
That's my expectation.
Yeah.
I think if he beats that,
So it wouldn't
and he
surprise
could, he could be an outlier to that, but that's the role I have him forecasted for.
Right. So again, maybe he just makes the most of it. But my God, can we not compare a freaking Western Kentucky Jag to Deebo freaking Samuel? Just you see freaking 2 broken tackles and everyone's Deebo Samuel all of a sudden. grinds my gears, Dwain. All right, last guy I talk about in this offense, Tyler Conklin. Dwain, I think your projections are great, but explain to me how you do not have Tyler Conklin projected for 87 targets when he's hit it in 3 consecutive years.
Well, I think just some of it comes back to like how much is he going to be the guy on the field when they are in their 21 personnel, and if we think that the Jets are going to be a better team, which we do because Aaron Rodgers is back, and if we look at their win expectations from Vegas, those are the things that I have to use. And Tyler Conklin, his utilization last year came whenever they were trailing and getting blown out. Whenever they were in closer games, it was a much heavier rotation of the tight ends. Having said all that, the underlying talent profile for Tyler Conklin, it is one of those that could just pop its head up at any point for a low-end tight end 1 finish. And we see this all the time. Like there's a tight end that comes out of nowhere. They're like, wow, he's tight end 11. Like every year we get these guys. And I think Conklin's in the group of guys that you could consider to be that way. And some of it does come back to the fact that they could also just get forced to play him more because they're like, Mike Williams isn't recovered yet. Malachi Corley's not ready to take on a full-time role. Alan Lazard, well, he's Alan Lazard. Xavier Gipson, like he's done nothing. Dude had like 11% targets per route run. So there's a scenario where Tyler Conklin is the third best passing option behind Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. And if Aaron Rodgers is playing good, that would have a chance to be a low-end tight end 1. So I'm fine with him. Again, there's nuance with all of these things, and we're not perfect at predicting the future. But if the Jets are playing as well as we think they're gonna, I think we're going to see less playing time this year from Tyler Conklin. And that's the one hang up that I have for him. But again, I like drafting him as a late round tight end. He's a guy that I do take, especially when I'm doing 3 tight end builds or I took an elite early. I don't mind Tyler Conklin being my second tight end.
Rodgers, one of maybe the only quarterback ever to get a tight end double-digit touchdowns on 460 targets. And I think we can all agree Robert Tonyan probably not.
A perfect example of a guy that came from nowhere to jump out and have a top, 6 fantasy season that year.
Again, I'm not going completely on my way. You agree, Jonnu Smith and Noah Fant over Conklin if we don't have stacks to worry about.
I mean, I've got them all in the same range, but yeah, if I'm not worrying about stacks, I just think the talent profiles are slightly better for the other 2 guys. Fant is closer to Conklin. I think Jonnu, if we're just going on talent alone and you're a purist, no, just give me the best player. It's Jonnu Smith.
I will say we had the Jets thing going on last year. They got rid of Dalvin Cook and they were saying, we're done with the veterans. We want to lean more on these run guys, which again, did not happen at all with Breece Hall and, Israel Abanaconda going on the backfield. We did see a little bit of tight end though. I mean, Conklin did not clear a 70% route rate from weeks 9 to week 15. Only really got that full-time role back once Jeremy Ruckert suffered a season-ending concussion. So a little bit biased, Dwain, Jeremy Ruckert, OHIO and everything. But do you think this could be split up a little bit more than we're anticipating?
I mean, yeah, I think, and that's kind of what I was saying. I think there is the potential for it, especially if they like Ruckert as the guy blocking and they run more 21 personnel or they want to run more heavy stuff. I could definitely see that role going more to a guy like Ruckert, a younger, stronger, more physical guy. Conklin's never been someone that any team has wanted to keep on the field a lot in blocking situations and run blocking situations. So the tricky part about that is Aaron Rodgers comes to the line, you're out there in your run set, and he sees, holy crap, look at this look I'm getting from the defense. I'm going to audible to a pass. Well, the challenge is then Tyler Conklin's not on the field. And, sometimes the best opportunities can come when an old veteran like Aaron Rodgers sees what he wants, sees he's got man coverage and the mismatch is with the tight end. Well, that can go a long way. That could take a touchdown away from your production. So I do think that we're going to see a little bit more of a mix than what people probably think for the tight ends.
That said, CJ Uzomah has taken his talents to Philadelphia, so at least one less guy to worry about from that perspective. But more than anything, just give me the 87 targets again. This is the longest streak of something just completely random that we've had since the Alvin Kamara 81 catches. DJ Moore going for 1,200 total yards and 4 touchdowns. What a time to be alive. But let's finish things off, as we always do here, comparing the 2024 Jets to a TV or movie character. Man, I might have had a few drinks when I wrote this one down a couple weeks ago, Dwain, but I'm going with Rocky 3. A once great fighter gets knocked out in a pushback for real competition at the beginning. That's Rocky, getting absolutely killed by Clubber Lang early on in that movie, just like Rodgers got quickly taken out the Achilles last year. But now it's time for round 2. And while I'm not quite sure that Rodgers has been grinding to the same extent as Rocky did throughout that movie, I don't exactly want to count them out because we know the pieces are there for a former once great champion. So that's my take. What say you, Dwain?
I'm going to go with, Yellowstone, John Dutton. We'll go with that for Aaron Rodgers. You know, whenever he gets banged up, he's hurt. The family has to scrap it together, and all hell breaks loose. You know, and I will say they manage better than Zach Wilson without their quarterback. If we're comparing that to John Dutton, but it's the older guy. It's the older guy. But at the end of the day, like when John Dutton's out there and he's getting stuff done, he's still kicking ass. Like he's out there riding horses and shit. He's getting things done, and so I think Aaron Rodgers definitely wants to come out and prove. Like Aaron Rodgers, I have no clue what he's doing on social media or the wild stuff that he happens to say, but between the lines, I'm expecting him to still be good enough to turn this team around. So I'll go with John Dutton from Yellowstone for an old dude.
Great stuff there, and hopefully more great stuff ahead. Still got to knock out the Patriots team preview for the AFC East, and guess what? We have plenty of more teams to get to after that. So make sure you're following us along, subscribe to our Fantasy Life YouTube page if you guys don't mind. Also, you can check out all these team previews in written form over at FantasyLife.com, where your boy has been grinding here for the better part of the last 2 months. Dwain's projections on FantasyLife.com as well, our consensus ranks, and even a free newsletter you can subscribe to. Talk about a great day to be great. So for Dwain, for producer Matt, I'm Ian. Thanks again for tuning in to the Fantasy Life Podcast. Until next time, take care, everybody.